Got a quick story to tell. So I'm Bo, the Eat More Kale guy. Last night I was invited to give a talk to 35 adults at a public library here in central Vermont. I got to the meeting. I was a couple of minutes late, so I had to get right into my talk and, got my jacket off, got right into the talk. Got 1 or 2 minutes into my introduction, was going to tell the history of me and how I'd wound up in Vermont and how Eat More Kale had developed and how my battle with Chick-fil-A, kind of put Eat More Kale on the map, if you will. So, I get into my introduction, and I'm 2 or 3 minutes into my introduction, and a lady raises her hand. And I stop myself, and I turn to her, and I say, "Yes, ma'am." She says, "I just have to tell you, my kitty loves kale." Well, people chuckle a little bit, and I was kind of surprised at her, her cat loving kale and her feeling like she needed to tell me that right at that moment. So I responded, "Well, you must have a very healthy cat, and the local farmers must be glad to have an extra customer." So everyone kind of chuckled, and I said, "Well, so back to Eat More Kale and back to Chick-fil-A." So I got back to my story, and I talked for another 5 or 10 minutes. And for a second time, the lady raises her hand. And I stop myself, and I say, "Yes, ma'am, you have another question." She says, "Have you ever considered making a t-shirt that says Kale for Kitties?" I said, "Well, no, ma'am, I have not considered making a shirt for Kales that says Kale for Kitties, but what a great idea, and what an original idea. Thank you, ma'am." So back to Eat More Kale versus Chick-fil-A. So I went back into my story, and I spoke for another 10 or 15 minutes even. And for a third time, the lady raises her hand. She looks at me, and I say, "Yes, ma'am, you have another question." She says, "Yes, I'm wondering, is kale even good for kitties?" I said, "Ma'am, I just don't know."